Have you ever wondered what the first draft of your favorite anime looked like? Were the main characters the same? How many times did the plot change? What little touches didn't survive the revision process? Sometimes we get pieces of these early drafts. Some concept art makes it in the art book. The author talks about plot points that changed. Maybe we even get test animation. But most of the time, the full draft is locked away in a drawer or tossed out. You can imagine what early versions were like, but you'll never get to experience it for yourself. But hey, exceptions prove the rule, and if anyone enjoys breaking the rules, it's Go Nagai. I'm Click Diggums, and today we're deep diving into one of Nagai's lesser known characters, the one who's arguably the most important to shaping his career, Demon Lord Dante. Demon Lord Dante, otherwise known as Mao Dante, is a 1971 manga created by Go Nagai. For those who don't know, Uncle Go is the guy who invented the super robot genre, so, kind of a big deal. His most famous works are Mazinger Z, Cutie Honey, and of course, Devilman. If you don't know Devilman, you might want to go read it. It's short, it's a masterpiece, and I'm going to spoil a bunch of it later. Nagai's inspiration for Demon Lord Dante is, about what you'd expect, actually. When Uncle Go was a kid, his brother showed him the pictures in an illustrated version of Dante Alighieri's masterpiece, The Divine Comedy. He liked them a lot. Here's the proof. One of the things that really captured Nagai's imagination was how the poem portrayed Lucifer, the king of hell. In the poem, the demon king is trapped in the deepest level of hell for revolting against God. His domain is an icy wasteland, and his lower half is trapped in a thick layer of ice, rendering him conscious but immobile. Nagai was drawn to the idea of a gigantic monster trapped in ice, and eventually decided he wanted to put his own spin on it. Bokura magazine liked the idea and rang in the new year of 1971 with this monstrosity. Now, normally I don't give away the whole plot, but Dante's short and I need to unload about how bizarre it is. So hey, here we go. Ryo Utsugi, no relation to the other Ryo, is your average high school kid tormented by night terrors. Instead of the one where his teeth fall out, his dreams are about the Himalayas, the demon with his face terrorizing cavemen, and being a giant. Typical teenage problems. Worse, he's got to keep these dreams to himself because his sister Sayori makes fun of him, and he doesn't want to be locked up. Typical teenage problems. Despite these vivid mountain-related nightmares, Ryo decides it's a good idea to go on a trip to a nearby mountain. Once there, he flips out, jumps off a cliff, and gets magically transported to the Himalayas, as one does. He ends up finding a monster who introduces itself as Dante. Ryo recognizes the monster from his dreams, gets brainwashed into releasing it somehow, and Dante thanks the lad by eating him. What a card. We then jump to a bunch of Satanist cultists who are trying to summon Dante with a good old-fashioned black mass ritual sacrifice. They want to summon Dante because apparently the big lug is worse than Satan, the guy they named their cult after. Oh dear. The forces of God, led by a resident cool guy, Sosuke Yoshiba, try to stop the Satanist ritual, but they're too late, and Dante gets transported to Japan. The cultists are thrilled until they notice Ryo's face jutting out of Dante's forehead instead of Judas Iscariot's. Oh, yeah, Dante was apparently Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 apostles of Christ when he was human. Don't worry about it. Dante goes on a rampage until Ryo's personality gains control of the body. He then gets attacked by this guy, who shows up out of nowhere. His name's Xenon, and he betrayed the demons because God offered him a better deal. It doesn't go well for him. In his dying breath, Xenon begs Dante to defeat God by raising an army of devils. Dante responds by turning back into Ryo and going home. After some faffing about and filler chapters, Ryo gets visited by another demon, Medusa, who takes him back in time to reveal the true nature of God and demons. Whatever, we're this far in, let's go with it. Turns out, God is an alien. An angry alien. An angry alien who wants to inhabit humans' bodies because it's made of energy. Don't mention this theory to your priest, they probably won't like it. The flashback also reveals Dante was originally a human. After God attacks his city, which by the way is explicitly stated to be Sodom, like Sodom and Gomorrah Sodom, Dante yells at the enormous fiery deity, which pisses it off and causes it to torture a bunch of innocent people. Dante responds by running away. And vowing to fight God with a fighter jet that he made for fun. Looks like humanity might have a chance, until Dante gets attacked by a dinosaur within seconds of takeoff. 2 dinosaurs, actually. Then God zaps him. Our hero. Lucky for Dante, he's so angry about the current state of affairs that he can't die. He transforms into the demon we're all reading the manga for and begins a centuries-long war against the almighty invader. We don't get to see much of it because of timing constraints, but it's at that country. Snap back to the present, Medusa reveals that the Satanists were the good guys all along, and anyone who isn't a Satanist or a demon is basically God possessing a meat puppet. Rio remembers that he's actually Dante from the past, who flung his soul 2,000 years into the future to begin the fight anew in a time when people forgot about God possessing them. Great plan. No clue how he pulled it off, but great plan. Invigorated, Dante summons an army of devils to prepare for the final battle against his age-old enemy. Dante hypes up his army, assuring them that now is the time to take back the planet God stole from them. And then, the apocalypse. But not the way you'd expect. As far as I can tell, Dante did pretty well in its original run. Fans were drawn to the book's horror elements and gore, and its themes about questioning those who draw the lines between right and wrong were interesting, even if they did come off a bit half-baked. The first half is a very good horror story, and even if the shift into a more traditional good versus evil plot feels weird, it's got some cool designs. The parents that complain say screw them, they never liked the guy anyway. The story probably would have kept going to an epic conclusion, but Bokura magazine went defunct. With the magazine publishing it dead, Dante couldn't continue. And so the plot ended on a massive cliffhanger, and Dante was banished back to the ice. Undeterred, Nagai planned his next move, and he knew exactly what he wanted to do. The story goes that a producer at Toei Animation thought Dante was, hey, really cool stuff, but couldn't justify turning it into a children's anime. Wonder why. With Bokura dead and Nagai having some free time on his hands, Toei asked if maybe he could tweak Dante into something a little more digestible. A little more humanoid, maybe. Make the devil more of a man. A Devilman. You see where I'm going with this.
You can call me Devilman!
Devilman released in 1972 and proceeded to sell like hotcakes, influencing countless other works. Its influence is so widespread you can still feel it in today's anime mega hits, such as But now I gotta back up the clickbait title and all that crap I said in the intro. Yeah, the concept for Devilman is similar to Dante. But are they really so close you can consider Dante a first draft? Oh, yeah, absolutely. See, it's not just the concept of a man merging with a demon that got ported from Dante to Devilman. The two manga share a weirdly high number of similarities. In fact, if Nagai hadn't written both, there'd probably be enough to get a lawsuit going. First of all, let's talk about ice. Dante's Inferno depicts Lucifer trapped in ice. Dante is trapped in ice. In Devilman, the demons rule the world until the Ice Age traps them in ice. In some versions, they're even explicitly trapped in the Himalayas, just like Dante was. But that's just a reference to classic literature, says Mr. Strawman. Surely we can let that slide. Sure. But both works also include demons warring against humanity in an apocalyptic finale, or, well, the lead-up to an apocalyptic finale in Dante's case. But you know, that's what you'd expect from literal demons. We can forgive that too. But now we get into the weird stuff. In no particular order, both works include a reference to the witch hunts which plagued Europe in the 16th century, even devoting a panel to a mini-history lesson. Both manga include references to a black mass. Devilman even cracks a meta-joke about Akira already knowing what a black mass is, so the guy doesn't have to explain it again. In both stories, demons come from prehistoric times. The specifics are different, but both involve humanoids merging with animals to become stronger. Both works feature a demon mind-wiping itself into thinking it's human, only to regain their memories and take their rightful place as leader of the demon army. Both works imply God as an alien intelligence instead of a purely spiritual figure, and they both depict him as, kind of an asshole. Even tiny details get referenced, like a demon named Xenon having an army of 100 demons, and a hell where you're ripped apart but still live and feel pain. Speaking of Xenon, The name was taken from Dante's enemy, but his appearance and role in the story resemble the main man himself. And most damning, Dante turns into a prototype Devilman in a throwaway chapter. In short, there are way too many similarities to deny that Nagai reused ideas from Dante when writing Devilman. But that begs the question, what makes Devilman so much better? Why is Dante almost forgotten, while Devilman is rightfully regarded as a classic? To answer that, I refer you to Dante's anime adaptation. The anime, also called Demon Lord / Mao Dante, was released in 2002. For the record, that's a little over 30 years after the original manga ended. A bit of a production gap there. It was animated by a studio called Magic Bus, which has done a lot of stuff. Their most famous works are probably the bits they animated for Legend of the Galactic Heroes and Yokai Watch. The guy signed off on the project and even let Magic Bus create their own ending, but he wasn't directly involved, and sadly it shows. See, the anime is a surprisingly close adaptation of the manga, but it's also 13 episodes adapting 3 volumes worth of content. Magic Bus had a lot of space to fill. On top of that, they had the daunting task, get it? There's a little pun, never mind, of trying to improve on Prime Go Nagai, and their writers were not at that same bar. To give you an idea, in the original manga, Ryo has been transported to the Himalayas and is talking to Dante within the first 100 pages. No time wasted. Here's what happens in the anime. It starts with the recreation of the first few pages of the manga, with Ryo telling Sayori about his dreams. We get a feel for their relationship, which I'll come back to later, and meet all the side characters. Meanwhile, the lead cultist from the manga, now named Professor Veilzebub, get it, steals the Holy Grail and the original Hanukkah menorah with his demon powers. God's forces respond by sending Blackout to just completely destroy him, an attack that somehow only results in 1 casualty. But that doesn't even stick because he revives through demon magic. I could not make this up if I wanted to. The Satanist kidnaps Sayori to use her as the victim in the Black Mass to revive Dante. Ryo goes to rescue her, while Sosuke reenacts a scene from the manga where God's forces attack the cultists. The ritual fails, and the cultists do this. At this point, we get back on track with the manga. Ryo goes to the mountains, warps to the Himalayas, and runs into Dante. Big scary. That's a pretty exciting first episode, right? Wrong. That's the first 3 episodes. I skipped over at least 20 minutes worth of filler, including a bizarre, unintentional subplot about the demons really wanting Dante to have a motorcycle, and this bit where the Satanists possess some fish in an aquarium for no reason. It's painfully obvious the Magic Bus team had no idea how to fill the gaps in between the manga's story points. A lot of subplots they introduce could be interesting, but they never get enough time to breathe because we need more scenes of Ryo moping or cultists saying, "Oh, Dante!" in the woods. No, seriously, I'd suggest taking a drink every time they say it, but you would die of alcohol poisoning before hitting the halfway point. To be fair, the characters from the original manga all get some extra time at the spotlight, but these storylines are hit or miss. Medusa gets some extra focus as Dante's former lover, but spends most of her time bailing him out when he gets in over his head. Sosuke gets some really cool moments, but his motivation changes wildly from episode to episode. One minute he's doubting God's organization, but stays just because he wants to kill demons. The next he's betraying God's organization. Then the next episode he's all for God's organization and he's begging Ryo to join. I can't get a beat on the guy. Xenon gets a little bit of time before his battle with Dante, but he still gets killed off so early that it doesn't really matter. And then there's Sayori. The show pushes this weird subplot of her being in love with Ryo, but hey, it's okay because Ryo's actually adopted. Except Sayori doesn't know that Ryo's adopted, so she's just got these really intense feelings for her brother, and nobody's like, "Hey, that's weird. Don't do that." It's kind of uncomfy. I think it's supposed to be copying the Akira Miki dynamic, but it just doesn't work. Speaking of copying Devilman, in an ironic twist of fate, the anime cribs a lot of inspiration from Dante's little brother. The family daughter falling for the adopted kid, this siren wannabe, humans descending into chaos when the apocalypse hits. There's more, but you get the point. It's telling that most of the new action scenes feature Dante in that throwaway Devilman form I mentioned earlier. On top of that, the animation is woof. I can't speak for Magic Bus's usual quality, but I'm going to be charitable and assume they passed this one off to the B team. Or maybe the C team. Faces are out of whack, CGI is awful, and characters occasionally just blink out of existence when they leave a room. The whole anime actually feels like a weird PS1 game. The music's all kind of generic, like something you hear in like a Newgrounds flash. The CGI flashes feel like something out of an FMV. There's even load times when they open doors. Don't believe me? Watch this.
何でも沢伝いに歩き回ってたらしいの。
This isn't Resident Evil. Why did they do that? And while I respect the team's dedication to adapting the original manga as closely as possible, the need to stick so closely to the source just emphasizes its flaws. See, with a manga, you can absorb the story at a faster pace than when you're watching an anime. Especially if you're reading digitally like I am, you get into a groove and just kinda accept all the weird stuff being thrown at you. Yeah, you can pick it apart in hindsight, but it's easier to let things go in the moment. Because the anime is making you watch all of these scenes at its own pace, you're forced to sit with all the plot points you skipped over when reading. Which means you think about them. And when you think about them, they make a lot less sense. How did Judas take over Dante's body? How did Dante shoot his soul into the future? How do God's forces know so much about how the Satanists operate? How exactly does getting hit by one of God's rays turn you into a demon instead of killing you like it does most people? To be fair, the anime kind of tries to answer that last one, but it's not really satisfying. Also, this is a nitpick, but you notice Ryo's face sticking out of Dante's head more in the anime. In the manga, Nagai uses shadows to hide it when Dante needs to look cooler, and the anime kinda does that, but it doesn't do it as much. So you get a lot of shots like You also realize that watching Dante fight isn't interesting. Weird as it might sound, he's always either too strong or too weak. To explain what I mean, let's compare to Devilman again. Devilman is strong. Really strong. In a fair fight, he'll pretty much always come out on top when fighting another demon. What makes his opponents so threatening and memorable is that they all have some kind of an edge over him. Cyrene is smart enough to weaken him with her minions and then swoop in for the kill while he's distracted. Jinmen is... Jinmen. Even Rasper the throwaway spider guy is smart enough to possess normal people, so Devilman has to hold back. Dante is also the strongest kid on his respective block, until he isn't. Sometimes he can tear his opponents apart no problem, to the point where they barely register as a threat. Other times, he's getting his ass kicked so hard somebody else has to bail him out. And the whole time it never really feels like he's in danger. If he loses, he'll just make it through because the plot says he has to. Another problem is, it's not clear who we're supposed to be rooting for. God is an alien monster who tortures people, and that's bad. But the Satanists who are fighting him are also killing people. But they're telling themselves these people aren't real people because God's possessing them, so they don't count? That's pretty bad too. Dante seems like the obvious choice, but his motivations are so inconsistent it's hard to root for him. One minute he's all, "Oh, I'm not a demon, I'm a real human being," and the next he's bummed out that Sosuke is killing a demon. His status as the leader of La Resistance also feels unearned, because his big mouth played a big part in screwing them over in the first place. Nobody ends up looking really good here. We just have the better option compared to all the others. Now Devilman. Devilman is worth rooting for. Demons are bad because they want to genocide humans. God is bad because he wants to genocide demons. Humans are bad because they want to genocide demons to the extent of genociding other humans. Devilman stands out because even though he's killing demons, he's only doing it to protect people. He's a noble man in a harsh, uncaring world, and you want to see him win. Even when it becomes really obvious, he's destined to lose. His refusal to give up is compelling, and that one word sums up why Devilman won. Devilman is compelling. The way it drags you into the mystery, the monsters of the week, the slow downward slide as things just keep getting worse. You have to keep going just to see how it ends. Dante has the seed of all of these good ideas, but it's too haphazard. It spends a lot of time setting up this horror story only to turn around and try to spin things as this big good versus evil plot. The ideas just don't flow right. The manga's way better than the anime, but it still pales in comparison to Devilman. Nagai knew this, and when the anime gave him the perfect excuse, he wanted to give Dante another shot. So, in 2002, a couple months before the anime aired, he rebooted Dante and tried to tidy it up some. The result was the manga Neo Demon Lord Dante. Did Nagai succeed in improving on the original? Yes and no. We'll start with the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the art. Nagai's mecha, monsters, and backgrounds definitely got better with time. The original's Dante is cool, but kind of reminds me of the Phantom Blot sometimes. But Neo's Dante, whoa, that thing is a threat. The destruction scenes are rad, the monsters are cool, everything looks less cartoony. Well, everything except the faces. You get used to it after a couple of chapters, but the guy's faces are still heavily rooted in the 70s, and it doesn't translate well when everything else looks more modern. But enough about the art. What did Nagai do to the story? Neo Dante restructures the plot, so we start with God invading the Earth, destroying Sodom, Dante turning into a demon, all that. Over the course of the manga, we also see God's reign over humanity is pretty strong. Demons are beaten to death in the streets, God's forces are this weird cult secret police combo, and the world generally doesn't seem like a very nice place to live. This helps ground the good versus evil plot and makes it easier to root for Dante and the demons, but it comes at the cost of losing a lot of the horror elements from the original's first half. Objectively speaking, yeah, the changes make a more cohesive story, but I kind of preferred the horror stuff, so it was a bummer to see it go. Nagai also took the chance to change up Dante's origin a little. He still turns into a demon after God zaps him, but in this version, he merges with his jet via some kind of psychic pseudoscience shenaniganry. No dinosaurs here. This has a weird side effect of giving him this Robo-Devilman form, but hey, it adds a new spin to things, so I'll allow it. Dante is also a much more competent leader than in the other versions, which makes him more likable, until we do a time skip, and he spends a good chunk of the manga doing nothing, while God and his angels turn the world into a dictatorship and things get progressively worse. Come to think of it, Dante is not very heroic in any version of the story. The most heroic he gets is when, he tells off God, but that comes off more stupid than heroic. It never feels like anything he's doing is making people's lives better. He's a passive character, only reacting to things because the plot says he has to. He doesn't have Devilman's drive, so it's harder to care about him. But that's a tangent. The real question is, which version of the manga is better? And does Neo hold a candle to Devilman? Well, Neo beats the original in terms of cohesive storytelling, action, and character motivations, mainly because people other than Rio actually have personalities in this version, but there's a mood to the original manga that makes it hard to put down. I mean, look at the use of shadow in these pages, or how Nagai uses blank space to focus your attention on Ryo's anguish here. Limitations breed creativity, and having fewer toys in the toy box helped Nagai get really good with the ones he had. And this moody atmosphere was something that Nagai carried into Devilman to great effect. So yeah, Neo loses there. I guess Neo's plot is a little bit better, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's good. It's passable. Much like the anime, the most interesting new pieces of lore get skimmed over too quickly, and some of the stuff from the original still feels clunky. It's fun for a quick read, but it doesn't stick with you the way Devilman does. One step forward, two steps back. But hey, this version gets an ending, so at least Nagai got to finish the story that helped launch him into stardom. It's rare to see authors go back to their early works, so it was nice for Dante to get that treatment. Yeah, it may have came 30 years late, but who's counting, right? Dante never had the impact of Devilman or Mazinger Z, and to be honest, it didn't really deserve to. That said, it hasn't been completely forgotten. Like everything else Nagai ever made, Dante got a shout out in Violence Jack with Dante, the gang leader. The guy even has a demon on his helmet that resembles the Big Lug, just in case you didn't catch the reference. Dante also got a weird 90s shoujo spin-off called Shin Demon Lord Dante. I skipped over it for two reasons. First reason, as far as I can tell, Nagai wasn't involved beyond giving out the license. Maybe. It might have been a dojin, I don't know. Looks like someone named Akira Fuga was responsible for the story and art, but information about him is hard to find. Second reason, I can't read the dang thing. It hasn't been translated in Nihongo ga yomimasen. The tags on MangaDex say there's boys love in it, so that's different? Ironically, this version of Dante is the one that lasted the longest. It was published from 94 to 98, while the longest quote-unquote official run was Neo from 02 to 04. Life's kind of funny like that sometimes. There's also a crossover manga, Demon Lord Dante vs. Getter Robo G. It's like the original manga, but Dante merges with Ryoma Nagare instead of Ryo. The first couple chapters have a Spanish translation, but as of this video, no English. It seems fine. You know, goofy crossover stuff, modern Nagai art. The focus on the robots helps with the phase problem, and even if you can't read Spanish, the art's fun to flip through. None of the manga have gotten an official English translation, but fan translations are pretty easy to find on all the usual sites. Geneon got the distribution rights for the anime and dropped it over 4 volumes in 2004, with a collected version releasing in 2005. These are all out of print, but Discotek rescued the anime in 2016. Now it's pretty easy to buy the whole series as a box set. All releases include an English dub, but I've heard it's not very good. I watched it subbed, so I can't comment, but buyer beware. If you really want to watch this thing, I'd recommend streaming. The only problem with that is that this is a cursed anime. Every streaming service that picks it up, including Crunchyroll, Midnight Pulp, and Retro Crush, kick it off the platform after a while. Although, don't tell anybody I told you this. If you type Demon Lord Dante anime into the YouTube search bar, you'll probably find a certain 13 video playlist which may or may not have English subs. Even if you prefer to buy your stuff, just trust me. This one you should try before you buy. Speaking of buying things, there's a little bit of Dante merch floating around. There are some t-shirts which may or may not be official. I can't find much concrete info on them. I'm assuming they're officially licensed because of the 2002 copyright, but I could be wrong. The really cool thing is this action figure. It dropped in Future's Devilman line. Both a nice nod to Dante's role in Devilman's history, and a slap in the face to the franchise that could have been. There are at least 2 color variants, one blue like in the anime, and one black. I think the others that are floating around online are fan repaints, but I couldn't find a proper catalog for Future's Devilman line, so who knows. This thing has a lot of really cool details, like a skull on the forehead and Ryo's face jutting out of the back. A little too expensive for me to justify buying it, but I kinda want it anyway. Dante is currently back in the ice, dreaming of the day where he'll finally overthrow his little brother and get some respect. And yes, it's easy to see why he failed. Devilman does everything Dante does way better. He's more marketable, his stories are more interesting, and he's more heroic. But even with that in mind, there's something about Dante that I really like. I highly recommend checking out the original manga, for the art if nothing else. And for what it is, Neo's pretty fun. They're both short enough to read in an afternoon, and even though they're flawed, there's a lot to like in each of them. The anime is a lot harder to recommend. If bad anime makes you laugh, there's some fun to be had here, but the laughs are sandwiched between thick layers of mediocre. It's only 13 episodes, so it could be worse, but even with a bad anime standing its reputation, there's a certain untapped potential in Dante, and I would love to see someone take another crack at him. make it a movie, really focus on the kaiju horror elements, and I think it could make something special. But until then, Dante waits in the cold Himalayas. Gone, but not quite forgotten. I'm Click Diggums. Thanks for watching. If you want more, like, comment, subscribe, etc. And if anyone ever translates Shin Dante, let me know. I'll check it out. Peace.